and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Frick Environmental Center. Don't tell the other, this is why I'm not using the microphone, don't tell the other departments, but this is my favorite presentation. Little housekeeping things. If you were not at the fire and EMS presentation last week, I do have a couple of packets. They gave like a folder full of information. So I have those in the back, just see me. And then at the end, I have the evaluations up here. So when the presentation is done, I'll distribute those and then you can just leave them up here. Cool. I think that's all that I have. Next week we will be doing something a little bit different. I'll send out in the email where to park at the police headquarters, but the second half of the presentation time will be just sort of like getting to know one another, and we'll also talk about our class project. So just sort of have that in the back of your mind. The class project can be whatever you want it to be. So we can work together as a group, and that's when the Slack will get really interesting. So I will stop talking, and I want to introduce the Director of the Department of Public Works, Mike Cable.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you. So, welcome students to week 4, I guess, of the Civic Leadership Academy. Again, I'm Director of Public Works, Mike Cable. Before I get into our presentation, though, I do want to speak a little bit about the facility that we're in this evening. We had our last Civic Leadership Academy here, and seems like a great location. This is a facility that was built in conjunction with the Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy and the City of Pittsburgh, raising $18 million to build not only this building, but the surrounding grounds. So if you came in from the parking lot, you saw above you the solar panels that are collecting the energy that provides energy to this facility. A little bit off-site is our areas where the water is being collected. So it's a net zero, net energy facility. You've probably heard of LEED Gold and LEED Silver and all that, but this building is under the Living Building Challenge, which is a higher degree of sustainability and criteria than even the LEED Gold and Silver and Platinum. So there's a lot of challenges with it, and just like LEED, there is a sort of checklist about a year later where they go back and see how the facility is performing. So I haven't heard of that information yet, but I know that they'll be coming forth with it. The facility is, I think, roughly just a little more than a year old. I think it opened up last September, so this is virtually a brand new facility. So we like being here, and we're happy that you're here also. Just a couple things, if I could request of you, we have a lot of presenters this evening, and I would like to just go through the presentation. I would like to hold your questions until the end. So if you have a question, maybe just jot it down, and then at the end we'll have plenty of time to answer questions, and the appropriate staff member or members can provide answers to your questions, hopefully. So let me proceed on with the presentation. It's titled "We Build This City." And I think that, I'm not sure exactly if we do build it, but I certainly think we have a big hand in everything that goes on in the city. A lot of people don't realize that we just don't take care of streets and parks and environmental services and all that, but we give out permits, we're inspecting things. We support other departments, so I think more than any other department in the city, we are so interconnected to all the departments and to all the residents of the city of Pittsburgh. So hopefully when we go through this presentation, you'll get a better feel or an idea of just exactly what Public Works is doing and has done for you over the years. So this is, I think you guys have all been given a packet of information. Some of this is going to be in there, but this is just to touch a little bit on the organization chart. This department will be, right now is in a little bit of a transition, which I'll go on, touch on a little bit later. We are losing some aspects of the Transportation and Engineering Bureau. Some of those services are going to be going over to a new department called the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure, which I'm not sure if they've presented yet or will be presenting. So that's a little flavor. It's our 4 bureaus is administration, operations, which includes parks and streets, transportation engineering, and then environmental services. So this is just a little snapshot of some of the areas that we're responsible for and some quantities of items that we take care of. Some of these numbers are constantly changing, so they're about as dated right now as possible, but tomorrow these figures could change. But we have quite a lot on our plate in terms of miles of streets and how many walls and how many steps and litter receptacles to empty and how many parks we maintain and how many buildings, how much equipment we maintain. That just gives you a little flavor of how broad and diverse this department really is. So in some previous presentations, I guess some of our stuff might have been a little dry, and we were told that, hey, you got to put some graphs in there. People like to see numbers and graphs and things like that. So we have a few graphs here just to give you a little flavor. And again, this is just right now, 2017. It's going to take on a little bit of a different picture in 18. But this is the capital budget. And most of the departments here, City Planning, Equipment Leasing Authority, Permits, PLI, URA, nobody's quite anywhere near, what we had. Now, before mobility and infrastructure came on, that 17 million was probably added to our 28, so we were responsible for $45 million in capital around the city. So what happens a lot of times is, the police will get capital money in their budget, and then they run to our architects in the Bureau of Transportation Engineering in the architecture division, and they say, you got to work on this police zone, you got to do this. So we got them to put all the capital related items that would be touching us or that we would have some aspect of working on and getting it put into our budget. So this one does reflect the mobility and infrastructure, and more than likely that next year that this figure will increase a little bit more because more capital will be moving over to DOMI. This is our operating budget. So of the bureaus, operations has the biggest slice of the pie. Environmental services, 15 million. And we have a number of trust funds here, the Shade Tree, Wayfinder. ARAD is the Allegheny Regional Asset District. We have liquid fuels, that's basically street related. Solid waste, and Public Works Trust Fund. That helps to also buy the salt we use and other services that we do in winter operations. So part of our, I wanted to show our street resurfacing program and try to give everybody a picture of what it's been like over the last, well, in this case, 23 years. And so the target, any year that we pave, we're looking to do somewhere in between 86 to 108 miles. Asphalt has a useful life of roughly 10 to 12 years. You can see from that chart that there's not very many years where we've met that goal. Too many years. This is the average over the 23-year period. And so we should be doing 86 to 108. We're roughly doing like half that. So over 20 years, we've only paved half the miles of streets we should have paved. We have 900 miles of asphalt streets. Basically tells you your system, the road system's in failure. But this administration, thanks to City Council and of course Mayor Peduto, we came in 14, and this was a budget that was already prepared for us. There was nothing we could do for it. It was a budget that was already passed for 14, so we were only able to do 39.3 miles. So 15, we jacked it to 54. We increased it in 16 to 58, and I'm going to tell you my estimate for this year. I believe that we are going to hit 65 miles. Okay? We're rising, and it's again a credit to our city council and our mayor that's been able to give us the money to do the resurfacing that we've needed to do. Now you'll look in the budget and you might see $15 million. All $15 million does not go entirely to street resurfacing. There are other aspects of the program. We have to put on thermoplastic line striping, there's pothole patching materials, there's crack sealing, there is handicap ramps. Handicap ramps have really eaten into the budget. At one time, they were only like $600 or $700 to do a handicap ramp. Now with the truncated domes, and those are the yellow, red, or the multicolored rectangular units in the handicap ramp, now costs us up to $1,700. This year alone, out of our paving program, we had to commit $3 million, almost $3 million, just to putting handicap ramps in. I would have rather have taken that $3 million. I mean, we want to do handicap ramps, but we also want to do a lot more paving. So that $3 million could have turned into, probably about 15, 20 more miles. So We go back into the program every year. Each quarter, we look at our budget, and we started out the year thinking that we were only going to do about 48 miles. And each time we met, we found that we were seeing some savings from some of the other aspects. Maybe the handicapped ramps weren't costing as much. We did build a contingency in, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were able to add mileage. And we've had 3 meetings so far, and each time we've added 2 miles. So we're now up to around 53. What jacks it up is that we also have a co-op with utilities, and I'll get into some of those slides a little bit later. Years ago, utilities would trench a street and only be responsible for half that street. So back in 14, we started the first co-ops with People's Gas. And they came in and they were going to trench 20 streets. I think they were primarily over in the Shady Side area. And so what we worked out with them is that they were going to still trench them, but they were going to be responsible for 12 streets curb to curb, and we would be responsible for the other 8 curb to curb. And so we got 20 streets paved while People's Gas got their work done, and we got 20 streets paved. So they paid for their work, we paid for our work, and we got them to do it. So we've had this co-op the last few years. Now it's really ballooned. It's with Columbia Gas now, it's with Pennsylvania American Water, it's with Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. All those authorities that are doing work all around the city, we're trying our best to at least match those utility work. Now, we can't commit our entire program to all the utility work going on, or else we wouldn't be looking at any other streets. So we try to do our best to match the best possible streets with the utilities. But it's been a very, very successful program. All right. So as I said, we feel that we've had, that's been a complaint years ago. It was about, as soon as we paved the street, what happened? The utility company came in and dug up a couple pits, and then they never fixed it right, or it looked terrible. Now we have better utility coordination. We have regular meetings with them on a monthly basis. I said earlier that we've added streets. Before we add those streets, we put our list together, and then it's run past the utilities just in case they have work that they're planning on that, maybe later this year, maybe in 2018. We'll move that street off the list and put something new on. So we have better coordination with the utilities. And again, cooperative projects, and so we feel that we've gotten more in a proactive role rather than a reactive mode. And I believe that our paving program, if you don't know it, I think you can go on the website and see what streets are going to actually be paved. So when we put our plan out in the beginning of the year, you'll see the streets, I think they're done sort of in a dark gray shading. I think you can hit on that and it'll kind of tell you when that is intended to be paved. When we first started out, we had a much larger window, but we've now tailored those things down. And the only reason it would come off if there was some other extraordinary situation. So that, it is a program that's it's a revolving, but basically the streets we've committed to paving this year, we've had a pretty good success rate. Okay. So as I said, they come up on the website. It looks like that. You can click on this street, and it'll tell you that this street will be paved sometime within this 2-week period in September, or let's pick October 1 to October 10th. So it gives you an idea that to plan for in case that's your street being paved. I also believe that robocalls are done to let people know. So a lot of times, you'll see the no parking signs go up. In the past, if you were having a street done, you had the door knockers put on your door. We've kind of moved away from that because that was sort of labor intensive for both us and the contractor. So now what we do is we use PWSA's robocall list, and if you're living on a street that's getting paved, you should have gotten a call letting you know that notification, so you can then move your vehicle and be off that street for those couple days. Anybody experience the robocalls or get street? Anybody here not have any of their streets paved or whatever? You have to give me your streets so we can make you happy. So there's an old utility coordination. When they used to come in, they would just pave half that street and then let the other half go. And so we believe that we have, corrected that. They're going to still do their trench. They're going to put their new line in that's servicing all your homes, but we're going to work with them to make sure that they're paving curb to curb. So is anybody, you guys all familiar with the website for the paving, the street resurfacing? Okay. If you go into the city's website, Public Works, I believe that there's a, I think it's on the right-hand side. You just click on it. There's a number of technology things there that you can click on to see. We'll talk about a few of them later on in the presentation, but the paving is one of them. So this is just a little bit enhanced of the earlier slide. You can go into any one of these locations to see what street's getting paved and when it's being paved. And you can see, we're not just in any one particular neighborhood. We're trying to branch ourselves to canvass the whole city. Okay.
Director?
Yes.
I think that's also on, it's also available on Bird's Eye View now as well.
And I don't know enough about the Bird's Eye View, so.
Yeah, it's just a layer that you can add on. You can just on the left-hand bar, just click street paving, and it'll come.
What I know about Bird's Eye View is, and Molly is correct, there is a wealth of information on that site. You can see crimes being committed, you can see streets being done, you can see the inspectors from PLI where they've gone to. If you care to know all that stuff, it's a wonderful site. It's just got a lot of it. We were looking at it the other day for another purpose about, again, utility coordination. People downtown were complaining about us coming in and working while they were having a conference. And so we get them from all angles. There's no good time to do any work in town. You used to be able to do it at night. Now there's people living down there. So there's no good. So it's the best time to work downtown is like 8 o'clock to about 10:30, and that's it. So not much you can do in the 2.5 hours. So we referred the PDP to that Bird's Eye View so that they can notify their members and the residents downtown, and they could get a better idea of when things are occurring and then decide whether they want to be there or make alterations. Another tech thing that we've deployed, it was back in 14 also, was the snowplow tracker. Has anybody here been able to look at that with regards to whether your street was salted and plowed or whatever? Not too much plowing in the last couple of years. I hope it works out this year too. So, so you have looked at it? Okay. So if you haven't, again, it's another application on the website that you can go into. It's only activated during a snow event. So the thing I would like people to understand, though, is that we will put up a notice to tell you what level we are at, and it's all dependent on the level or the number of inches of snow we're expecting. Now, we will tell you that the snow event is expected to be 24 to 36 hours. You may see it snow, and then it may not snow for the next 6 or 7 hours, and you all think that the snow event is over. It's not over, because people start getting on the phone and going, "You didn't salt my street." There's still more snow to come. We have to wait for the duration of that event to end before we are going to, guarantee you that we will get to every one of your streets within a 24, 36, 48-hour period, depending on the length or the depth of snow. But this is again, a good application here. You'll see a map like this. You can work the control on the bottom, and you can run an hour and see what streets were done. You can see where the truck is currently. You can click on your street and see when your street was salted. So there's a lot of good application. There's a lot of good information here that I would ask you to take a look at during the snow event if you are having any problems with snow and ice control. Another technology that we're going to be deploying quite soon that we have them in order is the litter can sensors. It's probably one of our highest task in terms of manpower. We spend about 100,000 hours a year just emptying rubbish cans around the city. We did a pilot project in the west end of the city for about, what, Bill, 6-7 months period, something like that? Yeah. So we did the pilot and found that we were getting all sorts of data. Understand that our crews, sometimes that's their job for the whole day. They get in a truck and they run a particular route and they look at 120 garbage cans. And they probably don't empty 120, but they might empty 40 or 50, but they still run the route, and that takes the day. So with this litter sensor pilot that we did, we found out that there were some days where only 10 cans needed to be emptied. Now, I don't want you to think, I mean, it's obvious to us when a can's full, it needs to be emptied. We want to empty it a little bit before that. We want to, we haven't picked out what that criteria is going to be yet. It might be, we might say empty every can that's 60% full or higher. So we found cans that may not need emptied for 30 days. We might say that that can doesn't need to really be there. We might be able to take that can and redeploy it to another area of the city that's more in need. There might be a day where they go out and only have to empty 10 cans. The software will tell them the exact route that they should take to empty those 10 cans, and then they come back to the shop and they actually get more work to do other than riding around for 7 more hours looking at a bunch of empty cans. So we feel that we're going to take that personnel and get other tasks done on the street side, maybe more vacant lots cleaned up, maybe more vegetation cut. There's a variety of tasks that can be done with those personnel rather than going to empty litter receptacles. So we thought the pilot was successful, and we are now ordering the litter receptacles that will start to be placed in the geographic divisions. And then once the division's been completed, we will activate it and start collecting that data and seeing how well the divisions are performing. And we will move from division to division, and then we will finalize this in 2018. I think we have enough money and time to do 5 of the 6 divisions, so the last division will be done early in 18, and by spring of 18 we shall have the whole system intact. So on any given day, supervisor or foreman can hit a button, print out a report, and they know exactly what cans need to be emptied, give it to the crew, and then there could be expectations for that crew to be more productive in doing other tasks. So this is sort of, look, you'll see cans that are out there that do not have these hoods on them. You'll see cans that are not our standard. We're going to have a standard litter receptacle out there with a hood that'll have a sensor underneath it. And that sensor is just always sending down the radar, so to speak, to detect what is the fill level of that litter receptacle, and it's going to tell us. So we can also be proactive to litter receptacles, like on Mount Washington, with it being a very high-profile, active area. If we know that those cans are more than likely to be filled on Saturday or Sunday and don't want to really put a crew on or have to call a crew out specially to empty them, we can look at that and maybe empty them on Thursday or Friday, before, even if they may be only at 20 or 30%. But then those cans would be able to take that activity through the weekend, and then we can get back at it on Monday without having to, do overtime and premium pay. So, my staff thinks that we're going to see maybe a 30% reduction. I'm thinking we can go as high as 50%. So if we go that high, that's 25 bodies staying in the division doing other things other than litter. If I tell you I have 6 park divisions, 6 street divisions, that's 2 more laborers in each of the divisions to do things other than emptying garbage cans. Okay. So this is kind of data from the pilot one that we did. I don't know if this is going to be exact, but I'll just give you a flavor of what we're looking at. So you can see on here 9D, 3W, that's 3 weeks, 9 days, 5 days. The ones in red, Bill, I think were full.
Good, yeah.
And they were already full for a day, 2 days, whatever, right? Okay. So this is kind of what it looked like. Here's one, 10 months. They got a can here, and it's, right, M is months. The amount of litter in that can at that pace won't be empty, it won't be filled for 10 months. That likely is a can we're going to pick up and find and put in another location in the city where it's going to better serve the city. So again, the data that's going to come out now will be a percentage. It will be telling the divisions that these cans are 60% full, they're 70% full, 30% full, and the foreman or supervisor will hit the data that day and say, we want to empty everything that's over 60%. It'll spit out those list of cans, might be 30, might be 40, might only be 10, but those are the only cans we dealt with. Crew comes back in, does other jobs. Yeah, I think, Bill, this kind of the same thing. It just kind of tells the different locations where they were at. These are the locations in the 5th Division. I guess is the percentage. It also calculates a tonnage or cubic yards or square yards, so we can figure out how much we're saving for putting in the landfills and such. And then these are the lake cans, right?
Printable, Mike, and you could give that to the driver.
Right. Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn it over now to, I will introduce each of the staff members when it's time for their presentation. So now it's going to be, for the Bureau of Administration, Marcel Newman is our Assistant Director.
Hello everyone, my name is Marcel Newman. I'm the Assistant Director for Public Works Administration. I'm going to talk about just a few areas from my team that, you know, they do a lot of mostly personnel issues. We do a lot of the staffing, the training, such things as sensitivity issues. And we are also right now transitioning our website. We're making huge improvements to it. We're adding, you know, sort of like apps like you have on your phone where if you are looking for volunteers or if you're looking for something specific, you can easily go to it and find it. So that should be completed by the end of this year. The next thing I want to talk about is our warehouse. We have a warehouse in the city Public Works, and it also helps with city parks and recreation. We use that warehouse for delivering of tables and chairs for special events. We also have 19 divisions, as you know, and we're trying to centralize all our purchasing from that warehouse. So we're moving to new technology so that everything can be standardized. For example, if we're buying equipment, we're buying it from the same vendor so that when we need to repair it, we can take it to that same vendor, and it's all will be standard. Permits and inspections. We have about 6 inspectors in the city. 2 or 3 of them will be permitting mostly parks and fields for next year and moving forward. We have about over 100 fields, and we permit a lot of youth and adult sports. For example, baseball, soccer, all those are permitted through our inspections and permits section. We are working on, we're talking to council about permitting our other facilities such as deck hockeys, courts, basketball courts, tennis courts, volleyball courts. So that's again, we're transitioning into that. Another thing we do on our team is maintenance agreements with external partners and organizations. For example, this facility here was in partnership with Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, and we do have an agreement in place for the maintenance of this facility. So they'll do their share and we'll do our share, and we go through the law department and make sure all this is set in stone in an agreement. I'll also talk a little bit more about volunteerism, shelter rentals, and community gardens on the next slide. So if you are a neighborhood organizer and would like to organize your community to clean up a park, we could help you with that. We have applications on our website, and this is the new, this is the correct place on our website where you can find it right now. Public Works will coordinate the removal of all the trash, so all your groups will do is just help us pick up the trash, bag it, and put it on the side of the street, and our folks will go and pick it up. We can also work with you if you have some other beautification ideas for your parks. I know you are working on a class project. If you have some ideas for it, I can work with you and give you permissions and perhaps services for your project. Park shelters. You may all know that we rent our park shelters. We have about 30 citywide. Most of them are in the major regional parks, Frick, Shenley, Riverview, and Highland Park. You can go on Register Parks, pittsburghpa.gov, and you can reserve your shelter, pay for it online, and just be done with it. So you don't have to come into any city Pittsburgh facilities or downtown to reserve your shelter. The fees are from $75 to about $250, and if you want to buy an alcohol permit, it's $75. Also, our team, we have gardens throughout the city. We have a huge garden at Highland Park, another one in Beachview, another one is at Ben Duchamp, which is on the south side slopes, and MLK in the Hill District. So those are, they used to be parks, well, they are still parks, but we have plots there, and we can issue licenses for individual plots if you'd like to maintain a garden, grow your own vegetables. We can help you with that. I have my cards here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thanks.
Good evening, folks, and thanks for coming out tonight and finding out a little bit about what our department does. My name is Bill Crean. I'm the Operations Superintendent for Public Works. I oversee the Street Maintenance Division, of which there are 6, Construction Division, Clean and Liens, together with PLI, Permits, Licenses, and Inspections. We are very actively cleaning up several homeless camps throughout the city, and I sit on the Special Events Committee, and I'll speak to each one of those. The city has 6 maintenance divisions carved up in the city, the smallest of which is the 6th Division, which is a central business district, a strip district, and a bit of the North Shore between the stadiums. It's very active with events, so that's why it's small in area. There's not there's more and more folks living downtown, but obviously there aren't a lot of residents in that particular division. We operate 11 street sweepers, sweeping roughly 20 posted routes, as well as the 1,200, or I guess it's 1,200 miles of city streets we try to maintain. I'm also responsible for the pothole crews that go out and working with the Mayor's Service Center. We react to 311s that folks call in, and that usually drives our day as far as pothole complaints go, so we know where to go and address those concerns of the residents. We also maintain the trails throughout the city, not in the parks, but the other rails to trails city that many of you probably use if you bike or blade or run or just walk. We maintain those as well. I'm also responsible for snow and ice control. I wish I could be responsible for snow and ice control, but we react to snow and ice and other weather-related emergencies. And Mike spoke to our snowplow tracker, which is a great tool to sit in the office and see how the guys are doing. If you ever go on that site, the darker the street gets, the more it has been traveled or treated, but not necessarily treated. It just means it was traveled that much. You may be going back to the barn to get more salt, and it just makes the street darker. But when the street turns a little darker, you'll notice that means it has been treated, and you can see each truck in each position, his location. And what time you dial into your street, you can see what time it was treated. And we also use this as managers. We use it as a tool to bear out some claims that are made against our drivers. I saw a white truck with a plow, and he sideswiped and took out my mirror. So we can go into that snowplow tracker and use GPS to find out if our truck was indeed there. And if he wasn't, then they're going to have to find some landscaper that did their mirror. The construction division is located in Lawrenceville underneath the 62nd Street Bridge. They maintain the city steps and different city facilities and sidewalks. We have over 600 sets of city steps totaling over 22 miles. So that's quite a Herculean task, and they're getting more and more usage as people start to appreciate the city and appreciate the steps that connect all these other neighborhoods. Folks are riding public transit, which is why they were built in the first place, to get down to the main thoroughfare so you can get on the streetcar. So folks are riding more and more public transit and living in places that they don't need a car, don't want a car. So they're getting more and more usage. I also work with permits, licenses, and inspections, PLI, to address clean and liens in the city. A clean and lien property is something that you complain, or someone lodges a complaint against a particular property for overgrowth, unsightly, the gutters torn down, it's leaking, gutters are leaking onto your property. There are a myriad of conditions that they address. So PLI sends an inspector out and inspects the property they get one notice, and if the property owner addresses it, it goes away. It's re-inspected in another 30 days, 60 days total. And after that, another 30 days, we get a notice, or the homeowner is sent a notice of clean and lean, and Public Works goes and addresses the property. We can't maintain it in perpetuity, but we can at least get the hedges cut and get the debris removed. If it's a danger to the kids walking to the bus or walking to school, you know, the hedges are overgrown, the grass is overgrown, it's just unsightly. But we cannot keep revisiting it. And then the property owner will be served a notice of lien, how much money we spent to clean up the property, and that property will be liened in that amount. And another part of my day is addressing homeless camps throughout the city. Obviously, it is a problem. It's bigger than myself or my department, but we do what we can. After all, these folks, some of them want to live in those conditions. Some of them have just happened on hard times. There are a number of service groups out there that help them. One I work with is Operation Safety Net, which is run by Mercy Outreach. It's over on the south side. And a lot of the homeless camps are in town or south side or along these trails, only because the services that they need are close and walkable, like the Red Door or the Salvation Army, where they can get a clean sleeping bag or you know, a hot meal, or they're, you know, if they need medication. But when we do go into these homeless camps, we give them ample notice that we're coming in to clean up. I mean, nobody has to live like that, although. So we give them ample notice because they do have some rights, and we just have to be respectful of that. And we'll tell them to make sure they take their medicine. Take everything that is of value to you, because anything that's left here is going to be thrown away. Whether it's anything, couches, lamps, you'd be surprised what we find. But sometimes we just place a 30-yard roll-off box there, and actually the residents of the camp pitch in and clean and do their own housekeeping, which is nice. And Chris Roach with Operation Safety Net has been a great tool, a great asset. And we also work with PennDOT. I'm sure you see the underneath the overpasses, and that is a concern to PennDOT, obviously for safety reasons, what happened in Atlanta. So we work with PennDOT, and they fence some places in, like if you're familiar with the north side, Anderson Street, they fence that in. 2nd Avenue along at the 10th Street Bridge, if you're familiar. And the other thing I do, I sit on the Special Events Committee. As a department, we support the special events, whether it's closing roads or placing barricades, stages. They present the special event. The event holder presents to the committee and outlines his event and how he wants to make a footprint, a festival footprint, a parade. Obviously, there's some big ticket items, St. Patrick's Day, the marathon, the regatta. Those are the big ones. We also have, you know, a hop, skip, and a jump on the North Shore every other week to raise money for any number of things. So they all require our support. And they all come in and they present to the committee, and we vote yes or no and give them the assets that they need. And the one thing that has happened, and this is just the way of the world, that we have been more focused on the mass gathering and crowd safety. Obviously, what's happened in France and other places is a concern to the Public Safety Department and to us. So we have gone to placing trucks and other immovable objects or hard to move objects where there is a mass gathering or a crowd, just for safety's sake. And the trucks work easily because they're movable if you have to get an emergency piece of equipment in there if someone has a hard episode or something like that. So that's about it. I'll turn it over to someone else.
Thanks, Bill. So before we go to the next presenter, just a couple of things I want to touch on with that Bill presented. The snow and ice program, since we're going to be getting into that relatively in the next month or two, hopefully not, but we'll see. Just to understand our scope, it isn't just about taking care of the streets. We have parks, We have sidewalks. There's roughly, I'm not saying we do all 276 miles of city-owned sidewalks, but that's the scope right now. We have to do bridge sidewalks. We have to do trails. We have to do bike lanes. That's it. So a lot of people just, the cars, they get upset when they see us on a trail or a bike lane or whatever, but those are all the expectations. Everybody who rides a bike, people who jog and run, you wouldn't think they're running in the snow, but they do run in the snow. And so we're responsible for all those things. And bridges are unique too. I mean, where do you put the snow? You can put it back out in the street that we just plowed, or you throw it over the fence down below, like a Bloomfield Bridge, down below is a park. So, each thing has its own unique way of taking care of it. Steps, I think we have 23 miles of steps. So what the mayor's tasked us with is to start building in bridge sidewalks, some steps, and we started doing that last year. I can't give you exact mileage, but we started to look at the park crews and the street crews and working that in their plans. So while when the park crews go around, they might hit a couple of streets and steps in their route. We've used specialty divisions that are not special. They're not presenting here tonight, but we have construction division, traffic division, facilities division, paving division. They all have personnel that we can utilize. So when it's snowing, the traffic division is not going to be putting up signs or painting anything, so we can utilize them to take care of snow and ice control. Same thing with construction. They're not going to be doing any projects. Can better use them on the snow and ice issues. And when the snow goes away and melts, or is in better shape, they can go back to doing the things that they do on a normal basis. So each year we will tend to incorporate more and more of these assets into our game plan, and it just won't be streets and park sidewalks and roads. It'll be steps, more bridge sidewalks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Bill mentioned we have 1,200 miles of streets, and I don't want you to get confused when I did say earlier we had 900 miles of asphalt streets. So we have 900 miles of asphalt streets, 170 miles of concrete and or brick and block stone. So brick and block stone are the old cobblestone streets that have like such nice character that sometimes they've paved over to those. I like to keep the character as best we can. And we have 130 miles of streets that we do for the state. There are state roads that go through the city, so we are responsible for doing those, but we do get reimbursed by the state. I think somewhere near to $600,000 or $700,000 they'll pay us for a winter season. And if there is an extraordinary winter, I mean, that's the basis, they'll give us extra money. The last 2 years, we have not had an extraordinary winter, and we've gotten extra money, so I'm not sure why. But we're certainly not going to turn it down. We'll take all the money we can get from them. So, all right. So the next Bureau of Operations, Superintendent Paulin is here, but not. I'm going to fill in for him tonight, but he'll be here in case we have to answer any questions. I'll put him on the hot seat for that, but I'll do a little bit of the presentation for him. So our park divisions, as Bill said, there's 6 street divisions and there's also 6 park divisions. They are not parallel. They do not share the same geographic boundaries. And you'll see that in the packets that are handed out to you. I think there are maps showing the specific divisions and the neighborhoods that they overlap. But all the park divisions work off of a standards and procedures for maintaining the parks, all the different assets. This is just the header page, but it's usually something of about almost as thick as a Bible. But it's documentation that the foreman used to convey down to the staff so that the facilities are being maintained on a consistent basis. Too much we were seeing that one division was cutting grass one way, another division was cutting grass another way, and when those people transferred to that division, they weren't doing it the same way. We tend to have everybody doing generally the same thing the same way, so it's consistent through the whole system. And the documentation is written in such that it's pretty easy that if anybody here was to come work for us and work in the park and say I gave you the turf maintenance documentation, you'd know exactly where to go, when to do it, how to do it, why and when. That's too many times we're talking new people coming in. It's okay to have training and that's kind of in-service training sessions, but A lot of times it's just, we need to use that documentation to make sure we're getting consistency through our parks. So all our assets, the courts, the ball fields, the turf, the invasive species, the trees, et cetera, all those have programs, and they're all sort of interactive about how we perform that service. And a lot of times it's to try to be as proactive as possible. Like on a playground, we don't want to go and take the truck and maybe go there, pick up the paper, empty the trash. They might go there and encounter swing seats missing. If they have that on a truck, rather than telling them going back and getting one, they can be doing things proactively. So that's the way the documentation is written. It gives a choice of both manual and mechanical methods. A lot of times, the laborers and such would like to use the manual way because it sort of lasts a little bit longer, but that's where the foremen need to encourage that, hey, you take the blower out, you take the vacuum out, blah, blah, blah. So all the 6 divisions work off of that standards and procedures for maintaining their parks. This past year, we implemented no pesticides to be used in parks. That's put a little bit of a challenge on the staff. I think, Tom, you're still trying to figure it out. But I just don't think pesticides fit in a park environment. There are other ways to do it. I'm a licensed applicator. I think, Tom, you're a licensed applicator. Too many times we go to the training courses and they're supposed to be telling you about IPM, integrated pest management. Pesticides should be the last thing chosen. There's 3 other, practices to be done before you get to using chemicals. But whenever you go to training, what's the thing you hear all the time? There's a new chemical, here's a new chemical, here's a new chemical. So, we've made that decision about no pesticides because we believe that there's other ways to take care of the problem. So, we're still trying to get over that hurdle a little bit. You may see ball fields that have a little bit more grass in them than normal. You might see some, a little bit higher weeds growing along some cracks or fence lines. But Tom's working on ideas. I've given him, the challenge to find products that are more favorable to the environment rather than pesticides. So we're moving in that direction. Bill's crew also, though, sprays chemicals, but he's next. So he better plan for pesticides being eliminated in the whole of the system. The other thing was, if you don't know, was in Parks and Recreation, who does most of the ordinances, there was a few years back an ordinance passed about smoking or in playgrounds and ball fields and such. We ramped up that ordinance that there's really no smoking allowed in parks. So I think those 2 things, no pesticides, no smoking, is more in line with parks than anything, and I think it's great that Director Griffith supported that, and of course that City Council passed that measure. And every year, we're given data, we're given stuff from the Trust for Public Land and the NRPA with regards to how we rate around the city with regards to our parks, and we do have about 160 parks. We certainly have a need to clean house a little bit. There's probably some facilities that we could probably reduce, make other facilities, enhance them a little bit better. But with the Trust for Public Land and NRPA, we just weren't hitting favorable. We were really low on the rankings, and that's the problem with having sort of a split department. We are responsible for the maintenance of the parks, Parks and Recreation. Molly, have they presented yet? Okay, so you'll hear from Director Griffin. He is basically responsible for the programming in the parks. But ideally, we have to collectively put our data together to provide that information to TPL and the NRPA. So there were years where there really wasn't I don't believe there was really a thorough job done on the data. And so I think we did a really knock-up job this year. And the information that we turned in, I feel very confident with, working with parks and working with my fiscal office. And we've elevated ourselves up that ladder, and we can justify every expense. So I think they were missing some numbers before. We got better. There's still a long way to go, but we're not as bad as some of the other cities as we looked. I mean, we're really as good as some of the really favorable parks around the country in terms of how much assets we have per 10,000 residents. We probably have more pools per resident than anybody in any city. We have a lot of playgrounds, so we have a lot of assets, a lot of things we can be proud of. But there's also a lot of things we don't have enough of, and one is we don't have a lot of acreage. We have 3,000 acres. And you go to other cities, and they're gulping up every square square inch of green that they can get to add to their acreage. And that's certainly our goal too. But we also want to gulp it up and add it when we can certainly be in a position to maintain it properly. I don't want to add on a 100-acre park and not have the resources to take care of it properly. All that's going to do is take away from all the other assets that we've been maintaining, and they're going to start to go downhill. In addition to the park divisions, Tom oversees the forestry division. And the one good thing about that is they had done, several years ago, had done an inventory that sort of developed a plan, a game plan, a 7-year plan for taking care of all the hazardous trees that need to be removed or pruned, and then also to get into a routine pruning, a preventative maintenance kind of program. And they had done that well for a few years, and I think they went back and they reinstituted the inventory to get a better picture of the landscape. And I think we have, 33,000 street trees. Now, these are the ones that you go up and down the street. I think there is a count for, all the trees are in the woodland and in the parks and all that, but these are just the streets that, drive down, you see all the oaks and the maples and all that kind of stuff. So we have 33,000 trees. And now they know, the game plan in terms of taking care of those, removing the hazardous ones, pruning the hazardous trees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we may have had 12 people working in forestry. We added 5 tree pruner positions. Since that time, we've reduced it by 2, but added 2 skilled laborers to take care of they go around with the stump cutting machine, so when the trees are cut, they go down and remove the stumps. So we have now 18 people working in forestry. To give you a picture of what it was like years ago, the city hasn't gotten any smaller. The number of trees has certainly increased, especially from maybe 30, 40 years ago. And the crew at that time was around 33 to 39 people taking care of the city of Pittsburgh. So, I will tell you that for many, many years, we were working with 12, a third of that, to take care of the same size city and a growing population of trees. So we've gotten better. We've increased the number. We've got more tree pruners. It's a hard job. As they get older, it's harder and harder. But we can prune trees. We don't need aerial bucket trucks. We have guys who can climb. So if I don't have a truck, if Tom doesn't have a truck, they can throw a rope up in a tree. They can get up in that tree. They can prune it, and they can take it down without a bucket truck. So if I had no vehicles, I could still put 8 tree pruners up in trees taking care of tree work. So we do want to continue to look at our resources, continue to add to that staff. But I think the one thing that's really important is that, and this probably has happened in a lot of your communities, there's a lot of trees being planted out there, and I think before they're planted, they look to see that there's a group of tree tenders that will take care of those trees. So think about that. Years ago, when all those trees were being planted, nobody was looking at them for 20 years. And then they were passed, more likely, they were always on our plate, but we just didn't have the time to go to those little trees. Those trees grew wrong. Never had the right training, prunings, and all that stuff. Now we're inheriting trees when it's getting beyond the tree tenders. We're getting trees that are in much better shape, healthier trees. Will take less to take care of them rather than having to cut them down because they weren't pruned right, or whatever the reason might be. It might have a disease or whatever. So the tree tender program is very successful. I know that our city forester, Lisa Chaffee, is a big part of that and working with Tree Pittsburgh. So if there's a community here that if you can advocate for getting trees planted through Tree Pittsburgh, there's money from Tree Vitalize, which is a state-funded program. And we'll be happy to plant trees with you as long as there's a kind of a committed volunteer group that will help take care of those trees at least for the next 5 or 6 years until maybe it gets beyond your scope. Okay? And the last area is the heavy equipment division, where they're responsible for 1,600 pieces of equipment for roughly line trimmers, low line trimmers, lawn mowers, things that you might be using in your houses, all the way up to, we used to have a crane, but we sold that. So what's our biggest piece of equipment? Grade-all? Yeah, so a big grade-all machine. It's a big truck, scoops out, scrapes the soil. You've probably seen it without realizing what it might be. 1,600 pieces of equipment, and we have roughly 7 mechanics repairing that equipment. 5 heavy equipment repair specialists and 2 equipment repair specialists. The 2 equipment repair specialists are generally park-related equipment, And the HERSs are the larger, you know, the tractors, the salt, the plows on the trucks, the salt spreaders, the larger heavy equipment that they maintain. All right. So that's it for parks operations. Let's see who's up next. This again is the Bureau of Transportation Engineering, and as I said, this was a much larger bureau before, and a lot of that has gone over to the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. The remaining piece going into 2018 will be the construction services, architecture, and the facilities maintenance. So within BTE right now, there is an architecture division. They're responsible for almost the 300 buildings that are out there, the architecture of them, the maintenance of them, the capital renovations. There's a project manager that oversees a architect, both two architects, one in landscape and the other one in buildings. And then that staff have some associates that work with them to help support their projects. But that's that's 6 people to design parks, 160 parks, 300 buildings. You know, I mean, again, they're not all being done in 1 year's time, but if you go and look in the capital budget, you will see that in the last year, this year, and next year, there's a lot of deliverables on the record for that staff to be doing. So we are going to be ramping up the facilities division next year, such that we're going to probably be going up to almost 14 people. There'll be at least 12 senior, regular, and associate project managers. And then there will be underneath them, there will be a combination of our facilities division, which is at 1807 Fifth Avenue. They're the ones that take care of the buildings. They have the HVAC techs, they have the plumbers, they have some carpenters, they have some station engineers. They're the ones that are sort of taking care of inside of the buildings like this. And then there's a construction division that's out at 62nd Street, underneath the 62nd Street Bridge out in Lawrenceville. That construction division basically has a lot of the exterior work. They do, they'll do walls, they'll do steps, they can do pour concrete roadways. I mean, they're a very talented bunch. They rebuild playgrounds, so they're more exterior, and the facilities is more interior. But the reality is that they both are operating with tradespeople. They both have carpenters, they have cement finishers, they have plumbers, iron workers. The idea is we're going to put all those trades together under one roof. Additionally, there's a warehousing factor with facilities, and at the 62nd Street facility, separate of construction, is our warehouse that delivers all the materials to Tom and Bill's crews. So we're going to look at that merging construction, facilities, and warehouse under one roof to take care of the exterior and interior needs of the city. So the Bureau next year will have an assistant director of facilities. There will be that enhanced architecture division, and then we will then condense the construction, facilities, and warehouse under one roof. And we think that that structure will have us taking care of these facilities in a much faster, more efficient pace. We're going through a study right now to see if there is a need to enhance the numbers of tradespeople to meet the needs of all those buildings and all those parks. We'll know that very soon. We are having a problem, though, with the trades, and we've converted some positions to create more trades positions. But we've been able to fill some, but some are just not attractive, and we just don't know why. We don't know if it's that they're in the city and they're just not applying. I mean, as you know, to work for the city, you have to live within the city. I believe that they're outside of the city. I believe they're in, Ross Township, Cranberry, whatever, and they're already situated, and they don't necessarily want to move in. They already have a family, and they're situated out there. So, we need plumbers. We're having trouble getting plumbers. We're having trouble getting some electricians. I think there's one other position.
Bricklayer.
What is it?
Bricklayer.
A bricklayer. So we've filled some of them. We've not filled all of them, and most of those positions have remained vacant for most of the year. We're continuing to do our outreach to personnel and civil service, to reach out to the unions anywhere we can to try to bring that talent into the city so we can fill those vacancies and then create those that enhanced division. Okay. See what's next. All right, so our final presentation will be for the Bureau of Environmental Services, and Assistant Director Bill Klimovich will be presenting along with Sean Weigel. All right, thank you.
Good evening, and again, thanks for coming out. It's an honor to present in front of you folks. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out. It shows how involved you are and care about the city of Pittsburgh, so thank you very much. As Mike said, my name is Bill Klimovich. I'm the Assistant Director, and with me tonight is Sean Weigel. He's going to talk to you a little bit about recycling when I'm finished with the topic of garbage. We are responsible for the refuse and recycling collection throughout the city of Pittsburgh. We offer refuse collection once a week from your households, and recycling, we're there every other week. We have approximately 200 employees. About 160 of those do the actual collections. And I need to tell you, it's an honor for me to say that I work with those folks because they're very hard-working folks. I think a lot of times people don't realize how dangerous that job is when they're out there. They're out in all the elements. There's things that they're collecting that all of you want to get rid of, and you just want to get it away from your house. So these folks are the ones entrusted in taking it and getting it away from your house. Our budget for 2017 is almost $16 million. We run 36 refuse routes every day. 34 of those are in the city of Pittsburgh, and for some of you who don't know, we actually do refuse collection in the borough of Wilkinsburg. We have 2 trucks out there every day that we collect, and we've been doing that for a number of years now. We have 10 recycling routes, residential, that we're collecting your residential recycling every other week, and we collect from about 115,000 households every week. We may be the only bureau that provides a service to every resident at least once a week. Hopefully you're never calling the police or the fire or EMS. In addition to that, we also service, the police, fire stations, some city and county facilities as well. Refuse, you put it out there and you wonder what happens to it. You go to bed at night, you wake up in the morning a lot of times, or you come home from work and it's gone, so you wonder, what the heck happened to it? We're taking that stuff to 2 landfills. We have 4 divisions. 2 of our divisions go to the Monroeville, the central and eastern part of the city, and the other 2 go out towards Findlay Township out Route 2230. That's the southern and northern. We do that for operational reasons. It's more efficient for us to do that. We landfill about 88,000 tons a year that actually gets landfilled. And it's a cost to the taxpayers about $2.2 million a year. That roughly averages out to about $25 a ton. The recycling material that we collect, it goes to a MRF, a materials recycling facility, and that's located down in the Hazelwood section of the city of Pittsburgh. They do the processing for us. A few years ago, the city was receiving some revenue as a result of the recycling. As of late, we weren't receiving money, but as of late, we're starting to receive a few dollars for that. So it's important that you do recycle for a number of reasons. Landfill space is very limited, but more so for the environment, it's very important that you take the time, encourage your friends, and it is a state law that you do recycle. We processed about 16,000 tons last year, or in 2015, and that was a cost to the city of about $103,000. What do we collect as far as refuse collection, what you put out there? We're going to take almost anything that you put out there. As long as it doesn't break the truck or hurt our employees, we're pretty much going to take almost anything you put out there within reason. We'll take 2 bulk items a week. Bulk items can consist of a mattress, stove, a couch, chair, things of that nature. So we ask that you only put out 2 a week, because if everyone puts out more than that, we're not going to do what we need to do, and that's get that garbage up off the street. We ask that you only use 35-gallon containers. Anything larger than that, we're not going to collect. It's very dangerous. It's very heavy for our workers to pick that up. So we ask that you keep the containers at 35 gallons or less. Or you can keep the containers on your property, but take the bags out the night before and set them on the street. We will collect it that way as well. Some of the things that we're not going to collect are demolition material or construction material. If you do a small project, we're going to take that for you. But if you're putting on a room or tearing down a room, something that we can't handle. We do not take Freon devices such as refrigerators, air conditioners, humidifiers. We can't take tires. We can't take those to the landfill. And we can't take covered devices. Recently, within the last few years, the computers have been banned from the landfill, peripherals, monitors, televisions. We can't take that material as well. So now I'm going to let Sean talk to you. Make sure that at the end of the night, you put the right number in. He's got a surprise for you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sean Weigel. I'm the program supervisor with the Bureau. Several years ago, used to be the city's recycling supervisor, so hopefully I'll do a good job filling in for our recycling supervisor tonight. Just some of the stuff that Bill already went over, the number of employees. If you go to the next one. Again, this is the landfill, some of the information. Obviously, certainly for us, everything we recycle versus what we landfill, no matter what we are getting as far as a rebate for the recycling, it still is a bonus to the city. It costs us less to recycle than it does to actually pay to throw something away. So certainly the more we can recycle, the better off we are. Okay, some of the items we unfortunately can't landfill or recycle easily, we do have to deal with on a daily basis. The household hazardous waste. We do not presently collect this. We work with the county, with the state, nonprofits to put on different programming for this. In your packets, everyone has one of these little handouts. The last collection event for the year is actually coming up October 14th. These go on periodically through the summer. It's really the best and only way to get rid of a lot of these materials. Things like water-based paints you can dry out and safely landfill, but a lot of those things that everybody has in their garage or basement, there's really no other way to get rid of those other than to work with a contractor to come in and take those items. As the e-waste, as Bill said, we're no longer able to landfill the TVs, the computers. So we also have another program where we work with the nonprofits. You can take these items to periodic collections. The next one's coming October 7th at Settler's Cabin. We also have information on there, all the well-known and up-to-date places you can on a daily basis take that. There is a fee for a lot of this material. The big, heavy televisions, computer monitors, it's all leaded glass. There's really no good way to get rid of that other than through a recycler, and it unfortunately costs those folks to get rid of that leaded glass. So unfortunately, the resident has to pay that. A little bit about our recycling. We take quite a lot of materials at the curb and our drop-offs. We take glass, plastics 1 through 5 and 7, all the metal cans, food containers, anything basically plastic that's 3-gallon or less. Everybody's probably familiar, everything plastic has a little number on the bottom of it. That kind of coincides what that material's made of. But just because it has that symbol doesn't mean we can take it. If it's your kid's toys or a big plastic bench, it will not go through the equipment at the sorting facility. So then it becomes trash on the backside. So we do our best to really put out a lot of information on the website, the annual mailer, every opportunity we can to try to educate our folks what we can take at the curb. It's anything we could do to help getting that word out, the better. We also have a little bit of information in your packet. Just a quick and easy what some of the top 10 items are that we want to collect from everybody and keep those out of the landfill. As I said, all our material goes to MRF. We do a single stream system in the city. We went to that a couple years back. Everything can be mixed together in the same blue bag or container. It does make it a lot easier for folks. There's no sorting, there's no multiple containers, multiple bags. So all that stuff goes to a facility where they're able to actually take it all and separate it out again. It's pretty amazing. We do have a little bit of information. I didn't put it in your pack, but if you are interested in that, we have it up here. The big thing with that is that you only really put the materials in that you're supposed to. Again, if you put the large items in, it will not go through the sorting material. If you put some oddball glass, window glass, things like that, it's not made to go through all the different things. And last but not least, there's folks down that are physically sorting that stuff. So if you put a big pane of glass or a big sharp piece of metal in there, there's always folks that could unfortunately get cut or hurt. So again, we have a lot of that information available on the website as well. But please work with us to make sure we get the right stuff, and it all works out well. Set out, that's another big one. Besides getting the right material, we need it put out correctly. If you've ever been behind the truck as it goes down the street, if you're late for work trying to get the kids to school, the quicker we can get our job done safely and out of your way, the better. If you've ever seen some of the houses, and I know you would think they took 20 minutes to mix the stuff together at the curb. If it takes us more than a few seconds to figure out if it's trash or recycling, you're not going to be happy with us if you're behind us in the truck. It's very simple. Just slightly separate your trash from your recycling. Again, the trash needs to be properly contained, not spread out all over your street. Our folks do a great job. They clean up a lot. But if you've thrown the stuff out from the sidewalk or the animals get into it the night before, there's only so much we can do and get to another 1,000 houses. Likewise, the recycling, have it either bagged or again in a container. Cardboard's a big one. We certainly take cardboard to the street, but we do need a little help. Break those boxes down. If you've got that big giant 55-inch TV, cut the box up a little bit. It doesn't go in the back of the truck very well when it's that big. So again, just a little bit help from our residents' end makes the process go a lot quicker and safer for everyone. We do provide a lot of other programming than just the typical street side collection. On any given year, we provide assistance over 100 special events every year. That's from things as large as the marathon or the Great Race to small church festivals. We do have containers that we can loan out. We also have an extensive program in the parks and in the business districts where we have different containers out. If you're out and have a bottle or can, you should be able to recycle that no matter where you're at. So that's a program each year we work to build on, and that's something we'll continue to do. We also have 5 different drop-off locations throughout the city to try to make it very convenient for folks. A couple of those are open 24/7. Our largest facility is at Construction Junction. It's one of the most popular. And we have 3 public works facilities that take all the same material that we take curbside and at the other drop-offs. But at those locations, we also take scrap metal. If you're cleaning out the basement and you have something you don't want to put out the curb to landfill, you can certainly take it there. We take yard debris from our residents there. It's a year-round drop-off in addition to our twice-a-year curbside, which the next curbside collection is going to be November 18th. It's a Saturday. We'll come right to your house, pick your stuff up. We just need to have it out at the curb and properly contained. Last but not least, we also take tires from our residents. Each the 3 public works facilities take those. So
per visit.
Pardon?
2 per visit.
2 per visit. So it's a item we want to keep out of the landfill, something we want to do for our residents, but it is a cost to the city. So we tried to limit it. If you had a couple in the garage or you got flat tire, we want to kind of discourage those folks that maybe have some sort of small business going on the side and want to try to bring us a whole truckload of tires. So again, these are all your tax dollars at work. It's again, the more we can keep out of the landfill, the more money we have to do other programming, things like that for you. And I believe that's the last slide. So last but not least, for anybody that is interested, we did bring recycling containers for everybody if you want. They're on the way out. If you want, stop by out at the gates. You're more than welcome to take one. Please use it. Well, we've got about 30 of them out there tonight. So. Great, thank you. Okay.
You have to stick around for a few more minutes before you get the recycling container. So let me just go over just a few other brief things, and then we will open the floor up for questions, which I'll ask Molly eventually to make sure we monitor, and I'm not going to pick them. You're going to pick them and all that. So before I get into some of the stuff, what will happen now is you'll see scrolling pictures of all the types of work and projects that we're involved in. While we're talking, you can casually look up at it, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot, and it'll just keep scrolling through. So if you miss it one time, eventually it'll come around maybe a couple, 3 times. There's a couple other sort of housekeeping things I never did mention, but it is in your packet. We are roughly almost 700 employees. That number will be somewhat reduced, probably around 60, 65 employees. We'll eventually go over to DOMI, so we'll still be above 600 employees in the Department of Public Works in these bureaus, including the bureau facilities. I do want to recognize Harvey Butts. Harvey's responsible for a lot of the PowerPoint presentation, especially the pictures. He's a terrific photographer, so he actually goes out and tries to take some pretty fascinating pictures and puts the nice stuff. You can see it's pretty colorful, so I appreciate what Harvey's done and thank him for it. Chris Young also works for us still is working as an intern, right? I don't know if he's going down to DOMI. Maybe we will let him go. I don't know. Maybe we'll hold him here in Public Works. But can you tell the students what you do?
Yeah, I've been working sometimes with Harvey. I take some photos. I do some other design work with the city. I've been running a time lapse of the Greenfield Bridge construction project, which has been why I'm still here. Really, is that hasn't wrapped up yet and it's not finished. So that video will be at the opening party on October 14th. If anyone is planning on going to that, I should be showing the video there. It's also online right now. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Thanks.
So you mentioned the Greenfield Bridge. It is probably right now the single biggest project that Public Works has ever undertaken. It's a $19 million renovation of the Greenfield Bridge. It's been a long time. It was fun for the implosion, but you just heard him say there's a party on October 14th, and Pat Hassett, Assistant Director Pat Hassett, lives in Greenfield. He likes parties. He likes to put on a good show. So he's pretty happy about the bridge. We're all happy about it. I think everybody driving across is going to be happy. So if you don't have anything to do on October 14th, show up on Greenfield Bridge. There'll be a lot to do. Okay. We really, I think you probably know about this already, but we do try to encourage anyone for complaints, compliments, even just comments, 311. Really like people to go through the 311. It's you can still, if you got like an emergency, you can still call down to the office, but we do encourage you to all get it into 311. There's a way it gets logged. There's a physical history of that complaint or whatever, and it can always be looked at later on. So if you call it in and then you get a response back saying it's been completed and you say, no, it hasn't, they can open it back up. So there's a history there. We do encourage you to faithfully use the 311, okay? And again, I do say if you have compliments, you can certainly call those in too. It's not a complaint line, it's a compliment, complaint, comment line. As you saw, I think we tried to show you that we have been trying to use a lot of technology in our department to manage the things that we do, to be more efficient about the work we do, and there's still more to come. We'll be rolling out stuff every year. We're always looking at things to be more efficient about what we're doing. We'll look at whatever the next great thing might be. Maybe it'll be turf maintenance and how we can maybe reduce that. I don't know. We pick litter receptacles because it's certainly a function that is not done seasonally. It's done all year long. And that at any improvement we make in that program should have a significant change in terms of resources back to the divisions. Everything else is sort of a seasonal thing. Snow and ice, picking up leaves, cutting grass. They're all seasonal functions, so they don't generate the same amount of cost as the litter receptacles do. But we will look at some of those other programs and use the technology to make things better. And then whatever is not answered here, you all have my card in the packet. You can email me, and I will try to answer it for you, or we will get it to the correct staff member to provide that answer. One couple last things about environmental services. Help me out here a little bit, Bill. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, we were up to 130,000 tons of solid waste.
Correct.
And what's the figure you used most recently?
It's 88,000 tons.
Okay, under 90,000. Less than 10 years or 11, 10 years, that's what, 42,000 tons less. And we can't say that the recycling has gone the same way, but it's going up. Everybody's getting better. So it's a compliment to all of you that you're reducing how much going to the landfill, even though we're a city that's growing in population, and that number's going way down. So that means we're spending less money. I mean, you figure it out, $29 a ton, 40,000 less tons going to the landfill every year. It's almost $1.2 million every year that we're saving. Recycling's going up, tonnage, and that's not going into landfill, and that is at times, most times, a revenue. So, what do we want to do? We want to make sure we're recycling more. And we just have a thing, and, it's not scientific. I go down in my neighborhood, and when I see my neighbors with 3 white bags and 1 blue bag, I'm pretty much guessing they're not recycling. You should see almost 3 blue bags to 1 white bag. So if somebody's not doing that, and again, we all know there's other things that get thrown out, but not on a consistent basis. It should be 1 to 3. You should have more blue bags going out. There's a lot more that can be recycled for a single stream. So there's a lot of things. I go down, not that I purposely do it, I go down and walk my dog, and I can see those bags, and I go, oh God, there's a whole lot of stuff that could have been in a blue bag. So we can all do a lot better, but everybody's doing great. The recycling is going up, the landfill tonnage is going down, and that's a positive thing. With that, I think we've made our presentation, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
So what we'll do is we'll just go around, if that's cool. And if you guys could also just introduce yourselves, like your name, your neighborhood, that'd be awesome. We'll start with Roy.
Do we need a microphone?
Yes.
This is on already?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's on.
Hi, Roy Blankenship, Knoxville community.
Speak loud so everyone can hear you.
Okay, Roy Blankenship, I'm from the community of Knoxville. Basically, it's a 2-part kind of question. It's about the water system and what's going on with the water. Being that the infrastructure is bad and they're going to have to sooner or later dig up these water lines, right? DPW, and you were talking about the curbs in the street. Is that like a 60-40 split on the work or the bill?
Well, the responsibility for the water issue is right now being borne entirely from Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. They were leased the city's water and sewer system probably 24 years ago. So I do believe, though, that we will be involved in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that was at one time, it was, before PWSA, it was its own city department, the Department of Water. Public Works had levels of responsibility for a lot of the sewers and catch basins and things like that. So we still have some levels of responsibility, but I think that we will probably help and work in conjunction with PWSA, but we just don't know all what's going to be on our plate yet.
Yeah, because that's going to be a lot of streets that are going to have to get torn up. Right?
As I said earlier, they are a utility also. So they, whatever they tear up, they're going to be responsible for, paving, curb. And like I said, we might be working with them doing some streets. They'll do some streets, but they're a utility too. And we actually saved them money because they had their own contractor doing resurfacing of projects, and they're now paying almost $6 or $7 less a square yard by going under our contract. So what we did is we took their quantities, included in our contract, so our contractor or the bidders would know exactly what the total square yardage would be. And we're actually saving PWSA a lot of money, which is ultimately saving all of you a lot of money, because maybe, your bills might go down, but we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
You'd like to think so, right?
I'm Jade Burka. I'm from Mount Washington. I don't necessarily have a question right now. Just thank you for presenting and all the materials. It's nice.
Thank you.
My name is Brittany. I live in Polish Hill, and my question is, so I live in Polish Hill, but I actually work in Monroeville, so I work outside of the city. So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I work in a 10-story office building that doesn't recycle at all in the building, which I actually take my recycling home. It really bothers me. So is there a way, my company that I work for is a tenant in that office building? So I don't want to be even though I know the owner of the building, I don't want to be hey, where are the recycling bins, or why don't we do this? Why isn't this like an option here? But do you have suggestions for what you would say to people like in the city that work or outside of it to like do something like about that? I don't understand.
Well, I'm gonna just answer something, but I'm gonna actually ask Bill or Sean to provide what they think on it. But I think the problem is that statewide, there's not a consistent recycling policy. So you can have something like we have in the city, which is a pretty broad and diverse recycling program. But then you could go to Penn Hills, and I don't know, so I'm just using an example, they might only do glass and paper or something like that. And so people, as you know, a lot of people coming into the city, like down at Point State Park, we have a lot of events, and that draws a lot of people from outside the city. And we put the blue recycling trailer at the other side of the Portal Bridge, and that's just for recycling. And at the end of the night, there was a lot of solid waste in there because people just didn't know. So I believe that the state needs to do a better job about making something more uniform across the state rather than going from, county to county to county and having all different types of recycling programs. Bill or Sean, you want to try to answer in terms of coming out, from outside the city and
From that standpoint, the state.
Yeah, do that.
The state does control that, and unfortunately it's based on population. So not every municipality is required to recycle. With the city, we are based on the amount of people we have. But something like that, I would contact Monroeville, see what their particular rules and regulations are with that. I know within the city we do require all the businesses to recycle. It is a very difficult thing to always enforce that. I believe we have over 11,000 commercial listings. In our recycling office, there's 3 folks in it. So it's very difficult to be everywhere all the time, but in that situation or anybody within the city, contact that municipality.
Excuse me. My name is Eric Young, Marshall Shaitlin, and I have several rental properties throughout the city, and some of them are older homes and older neighborhoods. And the city has planted trees along the sidewalk. In several of my homes, those trees are looking for water and tearing up my terracotta or the pipes. So my question is, because it cost me around $6,000 to $12,000 in repairs, can I cut and kill that tree?
Not legally.
That's okay.
But there are programs where the tree probably sounds like it needs to be root pruned and probably have some sidewalk repairs to do and such. You could file a claim through the law department. There is sort of an outlay of yourself for paying for like the concrete repairs, but the city would reimburse you a certain amount per square yard. And it's not going to cover it 100%, but it's something better than it was. It used to be like $4, it's $8 now a square yard or something like that. But just say you go that route and open up your sidewalk, Forestry then would come out and schedule a root pruning to prune those trees back. And the forester would then also look at the tree, make an assessment of the tree, whether or not that tree really should. I mean, she does have the authority and power to say whether a tree should be removed or not. So it could possibly be the case. Without seeing it, it's hard to say that right now. I would reach out to Forestry, but also maybe reach out to the law department and just look into the claim thing for right now. All right?
Hi, my name is Sarah Weber, and I live in Squirrel Hill South, very close to Shenley Park. And my question was, is there currently a community process for either making changes, say either closing a street, or if the neighbors, feel like a certain traffic pattern makes no sense or is bound to cause liability, kind of possibility of loss of life, is there a neighborhood process where neighbors can petition, or who's the legal owner of streets? Like who's the pertinent authority?
Well, it's probably our street, assuming it is a city-owned street. But there's a lot of different types of streets out there. There are private streets. There are what they call paper streets, et cetera. But there are a lot of city-owned streets. So let's just assume it's a city-owned street.
Like within a park, for instance, like a Shenley Street.
If it's in the park, I don't know. I was going to say that if it was not in the park, the municipal traffic engineer, who used to be in Public Works at one time, is now in DOMI. You would make a petition to that individual, and then they would make an assessment, whether to make it a one-way, two-way, change the pattern, close it, whatever the case may be, whatever you're appealing. Just in the park, it's a different animal. So what street would you be posturing, or you just?
There's a street within Shenley that's Prospect Drive. It's kind of a dead-end street.
Yes.
And we're basically wanting to petition for it to be partially closed so that people can bike and walk on, it connects to the bridge without concern for traffic.
Okay. So I do know there's the piece from Pecusset up into Prospect, that's been closed for years.
Right.
And I just kind of know that, I think that we would want to see a request from the community group to say that we would like to do this, and we will certainly entertain that. I don't think it's out of the realm of things, but I know before we tried to remove that guardrail, and it caused a firestorm of issues. So,
sure.
But to make a bike connection, I think it's a feasible chance. Yes.
Sure. We've done a traffic study, so we're looking forward to connecting with you.
Yes, I'm George Danko from Regent Square. I live across from the park here. I'd like to know exactly what is the arrangement that the city has with the Parks Conservancy for administering and caring for our parks.
Well, the Conservancy and the city have had a private-public partnership for probably 19, 20 years now. It's around 1998. The Conservancy's role at the time, and I believe it still is the same, the idea was the city did not have the means or the capital dollars to make the necessary investments in the park. So the idea would be the city might come forth with ideas to renovate structures or do improvements, and we might come to the table. Let's just use the Shenley Visitor Center over in Shenley Park as an example. So we might only have $500,000 to put to that. The goal was to go to the Conservancy and say, we'd like to do this project. It's about $1.6 million. We can contribute $500,000. We're looking for you to raise the capital to seal the deal. That's still the role, the way I see it today, but they certainly have grown as an organization. The fact that they're in here in this building, operating this center that was once operated by city personnel.
They own this building, correct?
No, the city owns, that's the thing, any asset built on city land is owned by the city of Pittsburgh. They just happen to pay the bill, a big part of the bill, to build this building and to build this part of the park. But if they leave today, this is our building. They don't take anything with them. They don't get to sell it. One thing about parks, it's very, very difficult to sell park land or any kind of a park asset. So the Conservancy has expanded. They have a lot of horticultural people. They have a lot of educational stuff. But, we work pretty well with them. And we're working on 2 projects now, McKinley Park, Chicken Hill project, and Allegheny Commons Park, the Northeast Quad, and Fountain. Those 2 projects are going on. They raised the money. We're contributing in-kind services. They're going to manage the project, but we're also going to have staff inspecting it and overseeing and commenting on the design. So we're not excluded from any of the process. We're both going down the same path. But everything built, the atria is built in Shenley Plaza. I'm sorry, the porch. I'm sorry, it was supposed to be an atria in the beginning. The porch which is an Eaton Park facility, that's a city facility. So anything on park land, anything built on park land and city land is owned by the city. It's the city's asset.
So it's on a project-by-project basis?
Yeah, that's basically how we deal. They, as you know, they've done signature projects in all the parks. They solely didn't do the whole project. They got help from us, whether it was from in-kind services or capital money. The fact that we're in RAD parks, we have RAD capital, so we're able to take that money and kind of match it with the Conservancy. Westinghouse Pond, which was completed last year, we've had the money for years. We were holding $500,000. We knew the project actually was about $1.5 million, and we said we're not doing anything until you raise the other $1 million, and then we can put the shovel in the ground. And so they finally raised the rest of the money, and then we put the shovel in the ground, built it, and now it's got a beautiful memorial and pond down there now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Barry Denmark, and I live downtown. I have 2 questions. One of them has to do with plastic bags and wraps that are not recyclable. Is that correct?
Plastic bags are not recyclable?
What I want to know about the blue bags that Giant Eagle seems to give us in, the tons every time you go to the grocery.
Well, plastic bags and wrap themselves are recyclable.
Okay.
Unfortunately, through our curbside program, they are not.
Okay.
So your best bet, if you want those items to be recycled, take them back to the store. Giant Eagle has a program, Target, Walmart, bunch of retail spots have places you can take those back.
Okay. Thank you. And my second question is about who maintains the dog parks. Do you take care of those?
Not exactly. The reason being is that dog parks, no matter how big they are a high maintenance item. Right? You almost lose them right away because they're running around and doing what they do. You lose the turf and all that. So the idea is that we've built them, but the intention is that there's either a community group or a volunteer group that will help. Yes, we do go in and do some things. We're not completely abandoning them. We'll cut the grass, whatever grass is left. But the problem is that, say you lose it, it goes to all denuded, and you want to reestablish grass. You don't throw seed down, it doesn't grow. It may come up green, but it doesn't take a foothold, and you're going to lose it in a matter of days or weeks. So the idea is sort of like what the county does. If you know the county, they have two separate places, right? Like in North Park, South Park. So they'll close one for the entire season and move everybody over to the other one. It gives it the year rest, gives it time to renovate. We don't have the same luxury in the city parks. We're in a much smaller acreage and all that. But we've tried to make them large enough so that we don't lose them. We just built one up in Highland Park last year, and I ride by and look at it. I think it's like 90% green. Yeah, it's a little bare in the front, but that's where everybody tends to hang out. They need to kind of spread out a little bit. The one downtown, if you ask me, I would probably not have wanted to build it because there's no dimension to it. But it was requested
But my dog loves it, so thank you.
Well, I think
he's happy to have grass.
And John Valentine and that group pushed for it, and we were able to make that happen. And it doesn't meet the 2-acre criteria, but I think it meets the needs of the people living downtown. I haven't seen it. Is it still green, or is it?
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's good to know. I think there's a limit on dog size too, so that might have a factor. So
people downtown, I think, are getting used to the fact that they need to pick up. That we have to pick up after our dogs on the streets and stuff. So I've never gone to the dog park where I have seen that people have not picked up.
Right.
So they're pretty responsible.
So you pick up, you put it in the garbage, and we'll empty the cans. So again, we're not doing full-blown maintenance, but we are participating and looking for the community groups and the volunteers to do a little bit too. Up in Mount Washington, we work with the Paul's group, and they shut it down for a period of a few weeks. We put the locks on the gates. They do an ancillary, throw some seed down. They green it up a little bit, but again, turf takes a year to establish itself, so you end up losing it right away. So, yeah, I haven't been over South Side for a while. So, the dog parks are increasing in size. It's good to hear, though, that it's being used and it's not in bad shape.
Yeah, we do use it.
Good.
Julie Cook from Brookline. I want to thank all of you first. It's been very enlightening, and I really enjoyed your presentations. So thank you. And I'm really enjoying the pictures too. So this is great. Thank you.
You want to make these your Christmas cards?
I know, they're wonderful. Thank you. I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but I was asked to ask this question by my husband, and he wanted to know if anybody could explain why I hope it's for a good reason, why there's so much construction everywhere you go in the city. There are detours everywhere. And it's not a complaint because we're glad it's getting taken care of.
It's a conspiracy.
We were wondering why.
The color orange, it's everybody's favorite, isn't it? I mean, everywhere you go, it's orange. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what we're going to do the day that we see no construction happen in the city. What will we do? So.
Oh, we're glad to see it. We were just wondering. It's like a windfall.
Well, I guess we're lucky to have a lot of money in this territory to do these kind of projects, so I guess we're blessed, and we'll have nice facilities for years to come. I'll just be happy to see 1 year of no construction, so just to see how it is to get around with no orange and barrels and all that kind of stuff.
Hi, I'm Patricia Treelor, and again, I want to thank everybody for coming out. This is very informative. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I live in Crafton Heights, and I live on a street where there is a park. It's behind the old Schaefer Elementary School. It's called Dunbar Park. And some people, have put graffiti on a little building there, and I appreciate that it's been painted over the same color of the building. I mean, it's still a swatch and you can still see that but I appreciate that it's been covered up and that sort of thing. But like in the park, there's some cement benches, like the bleachers are broken. And it's a park that's used a lot, with, the youth athletic programs and the adult athletic programs and everything. And, when I'm back there, I just want to why can't we fix these benches and, make, I don't know, just not so much clean up the park, but just improve it. And there's some city steps that are behind it and everything. And so I was kind of, along the lines of park beautification. I mean, is there some way to get a community group together that would be interested in helping and then approach someone and say, okay, if we're willing to do this and provide this, can you address some of these things?
Well, the simple answer is yes. We always like and encourage when we can get community groups and volunteers to help us do work and jointly help to take care of a facility. There are going to be the limitations as to what we are allowing you. It's not us, it's the unions, but we can certainly work something out. Dunbar is a facility that, it's had some improvements over the years, but it's also got some things that are still a little fatiguing and show that look of like 1950s, 1960s and all that kind of stuff. But as I said earlier, we have, and I'm kind of putting Bill and Tom maybe on the spot, but we'll see what happens. And if you guys want to offer anything, let me know. I said earlier we increased in the construction division the number of cement finishers we have. So I think last year we had 3, now we have 6. So we're going to be able to take those cement finishers and fix those types of assets, the bleachers, and they can do some other work out there. So the simple answer is yes, we're willing to work with you. I would suggest after, just maybe send me an email saying that, hey, can we talk about Dunbar, and we'll work something out. Okay?
Those bleachers are actually on the list.
Here you go.
Oh, okay, thank you. They
Put
are
on
good.
record.
It just looks a little ragtag.
I said
that's
the
all.
bleachers are actually on the list. We've already had assessed them, and we will be addressing them soon.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'm Nancy Leff from Lawrenceville, and I'm not going to ask any questions because I'd like to get out of here before midnight. But I thank you. I thank you for all the work you do and for being here tonight with us and for the new trash. I've always used the big green trash can, and I tie blue bags on it because I have almost no garbage, just a lot of recycling every week.
Great,
so
great.
It'll be nice to have a blue one, too. Thank
Cool.
you, guys and women.
Thank you.
My name's Ty. I'm from Mount Washington. We talked a few things about some of the things that are enforced, like street sweeping. I know that they're trailed by someone that gives tickets to everybody. But what about sidewalk clearing for people that don't shovel their sidewalks? What about trash and recycling? You talk a lot about the enforcement. Who's the group that's enforcing it? OMB talked about how they need more revenue. Now, no one likes to be fined, especially people in Pittsburgh. But what are we doing to create revenue to get people on the same track as the people that are following the rules? Who's that group? Who's enforcing it? Why isn't it done more often to create the revenue that the city needs?
Okay. Well, particularly if you're referring to snow and ice in the winter and not clearing sidewalks within a certain period of time, that would fall, correct me, Marcel, under Mike's crew. We have a number of inspectors that work in each of the geographic divisions, so they have a geographic area to take care of. It's just, it's one person and trying to cover what could be a 9 square mile area.
So are you fully
It's-
staffed, or is
no.
that the only staff that you can have?
We need more people in order to do that. Some of that could possibly fall to PLI. They have a lot more inspectors than we have, but they also have a lot of other things that they need to inspect. So we can certainly look together and maybe how we can partner with PLI to look at those levels of enforcement. With regards to the enforcement of the solid waste or the refuse and all that, Bill, that would be you guys, or are you talking about
Just any enforcement that Public Works, that they're in charge of.
So, Bill, maybe
is
you
there a
can-
certain group, or does each?
Wait, maybe you can talk about what you do in terms of citing and residents and businesses and all that.
From the refuse and recycling side of it, we do enforcement internally with our foremen and our supervisors. Our goal is not to issue citations. We're looking for a win-win situation. There's a process that we go through. I don't mind issuing citations and recovering some money through the court system, but what we do first is we try and warn the people, whether it's through verbal communication with the foreman and a resident, or we'll send out letters, or we brought literature that we use, door knockers we'll put on there. But again, our goal is to get a win-win situation, and our foremen and supervisors do enforce it whenever we get calls through the 311 system.
So let me expand on that a little bit, though, too, and tell you, something negative that really affects us is we actually are enforcing a lot of things. We are writing citations, and a lot of this goes to court, housing court. Housing court? Yes. Gets down to housing court, goes before district justice, and sometimes they throw a lot of this stuff out. And the problem, we think, is that it's not going to the justice that is in that particular geographic area. It might be a justice that lives out of the city. So he or she may have no real care about being in Pittsburgh. And so we've lost a lot. So we do write a lot of citations. We do send a lot of stuff to court. And it's a little defeating. So we've had discussions with the courts. And what we do is we go down to the municipal courts building. So it's whoever you get that day. We would like them to be heard in the district. So if there's something happening in the south side, we want to go to Judge Riccardi. When it's happening up in Brookline area, I think it's Judge King or whatever, I'm not sure. So we want it to go into the communities, be held by let those district justices hear it, and we feel that we'll have more wins than losses. Yep.
Can I just also add, from a community perspective, so this isn't really like a revenue raiser, but as a community affairs, I feel like I should say it. With snow especially, and this may be my personal pet peeve, just talk to your neighbors. Like, I lived next to a bunch of college kids and they never shoveled their walk, and it really annoyed me, so I just talked to them and they just didn't know that they had to. So it might be that kind of case. So just putting that plug in. You can also talk to your neighbors about these sort of things. It won't raise revenue, but will improve the neighborhood.
All right. Thank you.
What's the barrier to what you just suggested? Why isn't it happening?
I believe it has to be done. I don't think it has to go to the legislature, but there is some hierarchy of who makes the assignment. So we met with those representatives. We voiced our concerns. It's not just us. It's PLI has the same thing. You can imagine they're citing people for sidewalks or buildings, building issues or whatever. They're experiencing the same thing, probably 3 times or 4 times what we're dealing with. So we had our meeting with them. So we've had to have some further conversations. But it might be that it may have to eventually go to our state legislators to make a change in Harrisburg to make that happen. But we believe that we can make that happen. We have enough locals to affect that. Okay.
Hi, I'm Azar Kapoor from Square Hill. And about the comment that Molly made, one of the things that college kids, especially the ones coming from smaller towns or many international ones, one of the things is that they have no idea about word recycling. They don't know what it is and why they should do that. Are there any programs, educational programs with universities here?
We work with the universities, Duquesne, Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh. we work with them, but they do in-house when the students do move in. It's funny that you mentioned October 7th. Our bureau is doing a sweep in the Oakland area. We're sending out 8 or 10 foremen, and all they're going to do is canvass the entire area of Oakland, looking for violations, hopefully talking to students and educating them of what they're doing wrong and thanking them if they are doing things right. But it's a tough process because when you do educate them, now they move out and new students move in the next year. So the universities play a major role in this, and they've got to take responsibility, and some of them do it better than others.
Thank you.
I would offer that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, I would offer that we put a mailer that goes out. So it's going to somebody. It may not go to those students, but it's going to the landlord. The landlord has a responsibility to make sure his occupants are following whatever the rules and regulations are. So there's plenty of information out there that we think hopefully everybody will understand how to do better at recycling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tracy Kennedy. I'm from Squirrel Hill, and I moved recently to Pittsburgh from Philadelphia. And
Good.
So one thing that really, really excites me, one of the many things that excites me about Pittsburgh is the many green spaces, and I think it's a really unique asset of the city. And I was just curious if there is there's any efforts or any talk of like greening additional spaces throughout the city for safety or for other reasons.
I believe that we're always looking to increase our green space. As I said, we only have about 3,000 acres of green space. There's a lot of open green space that isn't necessarily park. Like, there's a lot of hillsides and all that, but there are plans to maybe make some trails through there and things of that nature. Question not whether they would fall under this department for maintenance or whatever. It might be a volunteer efforts. But probably we made an acquisition last year, I think. Was it last year, Tom? Yes. Hayes Park down in the Hayes area of the city. It's roughly 600 acres, I believe. Yeah, it's probably a very hilly, but it has a lot of, it does have a lot of features and a lot of promise. So I think that's something that we'll see being developed over the next several years. But we're always looking for green space.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Tremarky from Beachview, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm grateful for the new recycling container. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Director Gable, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited about the garbage can. But I have two separate areas I'd like to talk about. I wonder, if there's somebody that's handicapped, even though they can walk down a few steps, but they cannot carry their garbage down easily because in this case, a heart issue. Do you have like variances or something where it can be in the back or it can be so that, because this is because a lot of times people think that somebody's not wanting to do something, but there are all kinds of other. So I wondered about that.
We do offer a backyard service for folks that are the only able-bodied person in the house. What they can do is contact our office. There's a form that they have to get filled out by their physician saying that they cannot carry the trash down to the curb. And again, the only able-bodied person in the house. And our folks will then go to the backyard and collect the trash for them and the recycling.
Okay, thank you very much. A small thing, I've noticed some people kind of jerry-rig something to attach the lid to the can. Are there? I don't know if you at some point would consider a clinic where people can bring their cans somewhere and have that, because then it would always be able. Because otherwise, sometimes they will. Because of time, they'll take the lid off. And then it's on the ground, or it gets lost, or sometimes people end up putting a can to the curb without the lid, and sometimes that's a problem, sometimes it's not. So I wondered, is there a brand or a type of can that you know of that, aside from the ones where there's like almost a metal pole that's in the back and it flips, is there a brand that you recommend people get that will keep it, keep
Honestly,
the
I
lid?
don't know, but we
Okay,
don't
well-
advocate folks tying the lid
Oh,
to
you
the
don't?
can.
Okay, why not?
It gets caught up in the hopper when they're dumping it.
Okay,
Especially, if they're pulling out the bags, it's one thing, but if they're physically picking up the can and carrying it to the truck and dumping it in, it's cumbersome, it gets in the way, it can get caught on the hopper or anything else, the blade coming down.
Thank you. And I have a separate question. I guess I would call this like defensive contracting. Like, for example, about a year ago, I saw in the news that the chief of staff had sort of revised the policy. Like, for example, when a neighboring row house is torn down, so it creates problems for the side of the remaining one, because sometimes the bricks are missing or water gets in or so on. And there are other issues like in the city where that type of thing goes on, where maybe there's an older, there was an issue in the newspaper where an older person was out of the city, they couldn't find them, and that particular property was causing distress to the neighboring properties because of water or gutters or whatever. Do you have like a sort of section that addresses these kind of, or another example is, especially like in Oakland, the pavements, people park half on the pavements, sometimes all the way on the pavements. So the landlord becomes, or a homeowner becomes like a parking garage. But then in cases like that, will the city help to repair the pavement from? And the other problem with those kinds of instances is if you want to have somebody work on the house, it's almost dangerous for you to put a ladder for that person to work, because the cars are coming from two directions, and they'll come from one direction and park, or they'll come from the other.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Molly, PLI present yet? Okay. Those are, everything you've addressed there basically is basically under another department, the permits, license, and inspection. So if you want to save that for when you meet with Director Kennedy, I think she can answer those for you. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matthew Darwin from the East Liberty, and I moved into the area a few years ago, and I lived in Atlanta, and I just got back from Chicago this past week. And one thing some people from Pittsburgh and I were talking about when we went to Chicago is the amount of greenery and trees compared to all the other cities I've been to. Has the city always been like this, or was this put into action at a certain point, or?
You're impressed with the greenery that we have?
Yeah, compared to other cities, seem fairly barren with trees and greenery.
I've been with, in my prior life, I worked in the Department of Parks and Recreation for about 17, 18 years, and I moved over to Public Works. So having been with Forestry for a long time, I would say that we probably weren't as green. I think that there were a lot of varying funding sources there were years where they were planting like 2,000 trees.
Really?
But as I said, when those trees weren't being maintained properly, they ended up being problems later on, and they were probably cut. So, again, we never did an inventory back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Nobody knew exactly what the workload was. We know now it's 33,000 street trees. But we also have a very, very broad, diverse green space in the wooded areas and such. Yeah. Do you know what that figure is? You don't know. No, but somebody's done like an estimation. Obviously with GPS, you can do scan areas and then gauge what you think the population is. It's pretty dynamic. So I would say that we're probably getting green and getting greener every day.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Yin Chao. I'm from Squirrel Hill. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thanks.
I noticed in my neighborhood there's a lot of pedestrian crosswalks. Some are marked, some are not. So I'm just wondering, is there a standard to decide for you guys to decide which crosswalk will be marked, which one not?
Yeah, I don't know what the criteria is for marking the crosswalks. I do know that we are have really ramped up the ability to get to a lot of our crosswalks this year. I don't know if you guys, in driving around, you might see a more colorful city. You'll see the blue, the yellow and the white being, spray painted and marked around. And part of that's because we were able to, traffic division, the people that actually do that, put up the signs and do the crosswalks, really have a very small number of people down at that division. So what we were able to do is both Bill and Tom gave up 6 of their staff to go down, some of their skilled staff to go down to traffic, and then subsequently we hired some seasonal laborers to supplement that loss in the parks and the streets. And those 6 people went down to traffic, and they were actually able to create 2 more crews. So that's why you've been able to see a lot of line striping, crosswalk painting, the handicap curbs, and the yellow curbs. So it worked last year. They didn't do it quite as early, but I think we did it something like June through November. This year we were able to get them started in April, so they've actually been going since April, and they'll go to November. Pray that the weather stays as nice as it is, and they'll continue to do that through November. So I truly don't know what the criteria is. I agree with you. There's some places where crosswalks do go in and some that don't, and I know there's a criteria for that. So that's probably a question that probably should have went to DOMI, because the traffic division and the municipal traffic engineer, they're responsible for determining that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nichelle Parker. I'm from Central North Side. Thank you for being here this evening, all of you.
Thank you.
A couple questions for the sidewalks. Snow removal, I know on Central North Side we have snow angels. We help our neighbors get rid of the snow and ice, so on and so forth. But we do have some elderly neighbors who have sidewalks in disrepair. So I don't mind, not spending my fund money to repair my sidewalk, but I'm not going to do the whole street. Is there something for our neighbors who need sidewalk repair who can't afford it?
I'm going to let you got an answer, because I don't.
So there are URA loans, 0% interest home improvement loans that a lot of people will use to cover this. There are also for senior citizens who can demonstrate that they are in financial need. There are additional resources that I can email out to you guys. I'll put it on the Slack. There's a few different nonprofit organizations who will give them some grants and some assistance that way.
Okay.
And as I said earlier, excuse me, if that happens to have a tree that is causing that damage, and they are actually going to go the route of replacing that sidewalk, Forestry can root prune and or determine if the tree needs to stay or just be pruned back, and that can be turned as a law claim to at least recover some money that you would outlay.
Okay, and I have my situation covered, but just as an FYI. So I'm on Sandusky and North next to Allegheny General. So people use my sidewalk as a parking lot. So I keep my sidewalk in repair, but I have cars who continually, damage my sidewalk because they're parking there. So that's just kind of FYI.
If cars are really not supposed to be parking on sidewalks.
Right, and we call the police and they cite them. Yeah.
So you're going to, Sandusky and North, so you're going to see, you're pretty near to that Cedar and North then, where the project's going?
Yes.
Right there. So you're going to see some renovations happen in that corner of the park pretty soon.
Yes, and Allegheny Commons. So we're excited about that.
There you go.
Real quick, for painting, so does the Department of Public Works do the striping in the city, or do you subcontract that? And then are you using most of those water-based temporary ones, and where do you put the more permanent painting?
There's no such thing anymore as a permanent painting.
Okay.
The federal laws or rules changed and took all the supposedly bad stuff out of the paint, so that's why the lines don't last as long.
Okay.
They sort of fade after a while. But no, our traffic division is the one that does the line striping on the streets, and the curbs and the crosswalks and all that. We will put out also though some thermoplastic line striping. That's the stuff that's a little bit more permanent. That goes down. That's probably intended to last about 10 years. So that's 10 less stripings, or 5 to 10 less stripings we have to do. Because if they do a crosswalk today, more likely they have to do it within a couple of years because it's going to fade. So the ones that look like piano keys, looks like a pad going down, that's thermoplastic, and that has to be done by a contractor. We're not skilled enough yet to do that.
Okay. And my last question, are alleys, where do alleys come in the list of street paving? Because I know it's not on the top of the list because it's not for everybody, it's just my alley, but it needs repair. So does it go on the list? We keep checking the website to see what year it comes up.
No, it does go on the list. For the last 2 years, we didn't do it the first year in 14. 15, 16, and this year we have added, we do primaries and secondaries. So to give you an example, a primary might be Beechwood Boulevard. That's a main drag in terms of volume of traffic. Secondary would be the streets that are leading off of it. And then, of course, everybody should be able to figure out a tertiary would be the alleys and all that. So in our paving program, in years past, they would just basically look at primaries and secondaries. Maybe alleys might have been done by an in-house crew, maybe not. But with our program, we are doing all three. And you're right, we don't do an equal amount of tertiaries, but we do commit some money to doing tertiaries. And we've done that the last 3 years. And I have to tell you, I've actually gotten more compliments for doing somebody's alley than I've done for some of the primaries and secondaries. And it's because they either be able to get their cars back in the alley, or they walk in the alleys a lot, or whatever. So we do them. Now, the tertiaries are smaller in width, so we're able to do a lot more. And I think, I don't have a figure for you, but we do commit money to doing alleys. So we are not excluding them. Thank you.
In the meantime, is it something we can get in there and patch?
Yeah, it needs to be patched.
Well, give Bill your street after this, and then he'll get his crew out there to do some patching.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. My name's Tom Jackson. I live in Mount Washington, and my question is about the landfills. Are these? I have a couple of questions about them. Are they owned by the city of Pittsburgh, or do you buy space in them? How does that work?
No, they're owned by private companies. They bid on the contract, and the two locations are owned by two different companies, right? Waste Management and BFI. Yeah.
And what do you pay a cubic yard or a ton?
It's around $29 a ton, right?
About 29 at one and a few dollars less at the other one.
Okay, here it said $25 per ton is what you pay to the landfill. Is that correct?
Yes.
But that doesn't. That cost, does that include collecting it and transporting it to that site? That's
No.
an additional cost.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, April Clisora, Greenfield. I just wanted to comment on two of the things that have already been discussed. One was the commercial property owner's responsibility as far as recycling. I had the experience, just for anybody who does work in the city, and especially some of the smaller commercial buildings where you have just a few offices, a lot of the property owners do not provide that recycling. I did my research when I was working in a building like this and found, they are legally responsible in the city for providing containers and services to haul away recycling. So we were able to just, send a note to the property landlord, and, to our surprise, he actually complied with it really quickly and got the containers out there and hired Waste Management or somebody. So that was a good experience. It can be done. And I also wanted to just comment, I don't know if this was the case with Molly's younger neighbors, that they, were not snow shoveling and stuff. It really is the property owner's responsibility to shovel, unless there's a law in Pittsburgh that's different than anywhere else, but I believe it's the property owner. And one of the things that's upsetting to me is I see renters who are led to believe that it's their responsibility, and it's not. And I think property owners don't appreciate. Sure, but it's a cost of doing business for a property owner who doesn't live on the property. It's their cost of doing business, and they should do it or have it done.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rob. I live in Garfield. I don't really have any important questions on the issues, but I did want to thank everyone involved for the presentation today and the work that you do. I just wanted to say two things, and that is, I've noticed from the pictures, you have pictures, I live not too far from East Liberty, of the bridges and the lighting arrangements that you created over those bridges. I just want to tell you, those are so beautiful, and they really do add a lot to the experience of living in the city. It's a rare experience to be in Pittsburgh, and to be in like this romantic kind of lighting in the evening, it does add a lot to the experience of living in the city. And the second thing is that the investments that the city parks have made in like the water, recreational aspects are some of my favorite parts, and I really do appreciate it. I know a lot of children in my neighborhood and my own have derived a lot of joy from those experiences. So thank you for that, and definitely continue to make those investments.
Thank you. And to speak to you'll hear this with Director Griffin, but a lot of the closed pools are being converted into spray parks. So they are being repurposed, and I think the next one down the line that they're working on, my staff's working on, is at Paulson Pool. So that's I think they've already done some work on the building in terms of demoing some of the building, and they'll be working on that in 2018, hopefully getting it opened in 2018. Thank you.
I'm Bianca. I live in Homewood, but I also am a city employee, work for the 311 line. With that being said, the gentleman in the front who has the root pruning issue, that would be an ideal, yes, I forgot your name. You said it, I forget. That would be an ideal time for you to use 311, because there were two things that he asked you to do. Instead of having to contact Forestry to request a root pruning and contact the law department, if you call 311, they'll mail you a claim form, and they'll put the request in for the root pruning and give you a reference number so you can keep that and then coordinate from there. So it's just going to save you time and save you phone calls. So that's that.
Thank you.
My question is, does it always require a court order to exercise or execute a clean and lien, or is there any other way around it? Because we are, the information that we share with residents who repeatedly call about properties, they get inspected, they go to the magistrate, and they're still not, a year later, they're still in disrepair, or they're still not cleaned up, because we're told that they need a court has to order it, or the magistrate has to order it. But at the same time, there's also properties that get clean and leaned that there weren't orders for. So I guess I'm trying to get some clarity on what do you need, or what does DPW need to exercise that?
Well, the best answer I can give to that is this. The mayor certainly would like us to get into a property that needs cut, cleaned, debris removed, whatever, a lot quicker than what it's been in the past. We're only, again, following what PLI's procedure has been. They do the 3 notices. We've had meetings. The mayor would like it to happen within 5 days. So we're not the ones that have to create that, that has to be created through PLI and whatever there are as existing ordinances in the city code that might need to be amended and enhanced for us to be allowed to do that. So there is a desire to do that, but when that happens, then we're going to have to be able to be ramped up in terms of personnel, because right now we're putting at least a minimal effort at taking care of the cleaning liens that are given to each division, because there's so many other things that division has to do. So the mayor has asked us to give him some information to tell him, like, I'm going to need 5 more laborers in each division or whatever, and then we'll make those, try to get those resources. The problem, though, is that most of the properties, as you know, are dead end. So I've sent out 800 letters to properties that we've cut and cleaned and removed debris. And I will probably tell you that we've captured at least responses from people, probably no more than 15. And I think maybe 3 or 4 people have paid to date. Most people, when I'm writing a letter that's going to the same address that we just cleaned and leaned, I know that's coming back as a non-deliverable thing. I was sending letters to Arizona, California, like to corporations and companies, and I thought, wow, this is going to get to somebody. They're going to actually pay us what we, for the services we did. Coming back undeliverable, the company's gone under and all that. So it's very disheartening. As we all know, somebody owns that house. I mean, the people that it's under that name may have passed away, but they probably have children and somebody in that. So we've gone to the court records, or Allegheny County's records, and asked them to have better information that what we're sending out is going to go to a party that's going to then be responsible for paying us for what. And when we start capturing that money, and paying for the resources that we're committing to do it, we can then hire more people and we can get to more lots and all that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we're not the leader on this. It's PLI has to be the leader in terms of what's in the city code.
So the order, my question more so is where the order comes from. Are you saying that the order comes from PLI?
I don't have nothing coming from courts. All my stuff all our stuff is coming from PLI. Okay. Everything. Thank you.
Somebody sells that property.
They're responsible for those liens.
Is there a procedure by which you know that the property has been sold?
My letters go to the property owners, the supposed property owner, but a copy goes back to PLI and the law department. So a lien is put against that property.
So when somebody comes to clear that,
that's correct.
Then
yes.
That's when you collect.
Yeah, we'll hopefully get the money then. Yes. Questions? Okay, thank you. No questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jan Nedden from Squirrel Hill. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I think the city is just amazingly beautifully maintained, and you do a fabulous job.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Farhad from East Liberty. I just had a question about what's going on Negley Avenue, like the paints and
bike lanes.
Are those bike lanes? People are confused, like
they are bike
in
lanes.
terms of like how to drive.
The problem is, yes, it did cause some confusion for the last couple of days, but they now have got the markings down, the signs are up. I heard the other day, I had a staff member report late. I didn't know that she lived in Highland Park. It took like 45 minutes just to get from Stanton to Center. And then I asked her today how did it go, and she said it was much better. Everything. So I drive every night. I take my daughter to work over at UPMC, and I was confused. I didn't know where I was driving. I was in the wrong lane. Thank God there was no traffic at that time of night. So yes, it was very confusing, but it's my understanding that as each night they were making improvements, so it looks to be a lot better. But it's bike lanes, and then they've narrowed down, instead of it being 2 lanes for traffic in some places, it's a single lane with turning lanes and such.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcus from Bloomfield. I just had a question about the homeless camps and I guess how you navigate those and work with the different shelters around the city.
Oh, I'm going to let Mr. Crean answer that. They like us, by the way.
We address the homeless camps through Operation Safety Net. They go in first. They're a friendly face to these folks. We come in with equipment. We're the bad guys. So we kind of lay some groundwork with them. We post it so they know whether to take it, like I said earlier, to take their belongings, take what's important to them. They have papers, they have medications, there's stuff that they need to exist. And so we make sure that they have all that. And like I said, Chris is very instrumental in doing all that. But there are several problem areas behind Couple Stadium, Howard Street, if you're on 279 coming into the city on the right-hand side, underneath the Arlington Avenue extension. So we do have our problem areas that we address. And again, working with PennDOT and working with Safety Net, that's how we address them. All we can do is maintain them. I mean, it actually has become almost like an environmental rubbish route that we maintain and just make regular stops and take care of them. All right? Thank you.
And I know it's about 8:30 and the people in the front are like, can we get out of here? But my name is Justin Sander. I just have a quick question, and I may be beating a dead horse with some of the recycling questions, but I get the sense that we are improving, but do we have any say in the strategy for the city of Pittsburgh in terms of what the recycling program is going to look like for the next 5 to 10 years? Because I know other cities and other states are obviously taking more dramatic steps towards eliminating plastic bags altogether. And I know that they are being much more proactive in the sense of they are creating programs that are radically changing how we look at recycling from top to bottom. So does this organization have a influence on Mayor Peduto's overall plan for recycling as a means to an ends for the city? Because ultimately that has an impact on the environment, the parks, all of the other surrounding areas of the city.
Yes, certainly. Through Mayor Peduto's office, we're certainly looking at all those things to head towards zero waste. It's something that evolves. For our area, there's a lot of things that they're doing other places that we just quite haven't caught up with them yet. Composting, different things, and unfortunately costs us a lot more to do them here than it does other places. So certainly down the line, it's stuff we're looking at to always improve and make the process easier and better.
And just a quick follow-up to that. So are there any innovative companies that are coming to the city of Pittsburgh or that are originating in the city of Pittsburgh to help solve some of those cost barriers to moving forward with some of these issues?
Certainly for some of them, but it's again, it's kind of market driven. If there's a niche and somebody can come in, they will, but in other things, it's been kind of slow to get partners and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Molly, does the mayor's office present also for this?
The mayor did present at the first class, and he will be at the last as well.
Because, Grant Irvin's with City Planning. City Planning?
Grant actually will present with City Planning.
Okay, so when City Planning comes to the table, you can bring up that thing about zero waste, and he can really expand on that. I mean, they have the game plan, the footprint for implementing all that. Last question?
I told Justin to answer that question.
Is that right? You teamed up. Well, I think it's been a long night. I do appreciate all the questions. You gave us some tough ones. I hope we answered, and I hope we made a nice presentation for you. There's one other thing I did. I mean, these have been scrolling along, and just one thing to tell you about our sustainability feature is how many Highland Park? Who lives near Highland Park? Anybody here? Highland Park? Okay. So did you see the Lake Carnegie? Yeah. All right. So we got aerators in there. So let me just tell you, like, you know that water comes in and water goes out the other end of the lake, right? It's just like flushing water down the drain. Waste of water. Wasting water to the extent of 84 million gallons of water, okay? Put these aerators in to keep the water moving. As you know, the water is not on feeding the lake anymore. We will turn it on only when it drops to the lowest level to feed some water back in there. Same amount of water is in there, the aerator's in there. We will reduce that down from 84 million to 1 million gallons. That's an $83 million gallons of water that we're going to save the city. But those aerators, so understand, you may see the water on occasionally, but that's only to feed it because it evaporated, or it just need to bring it up to a certain level. But that was water going in. Water's simply just going down the other end of the catch basin and out into the river. Complete waste of water.
That was at no cost to the city or Highland Park, correct?
That's correct. The PWSA worked with us. They paid for the mechanism that's inside the log cabin. Rich Lieb with PWSA, I think, donned a scuba suit and helped put some of the aerators in the bottom of the lake, and it's working perfectly. That's a significant amount of water. That's pretty dynamic. So I will end with that. Thank you very much for allowing us this opportunity.